Okay, today, what I'm up to for you, it's been a while. I've been putting out videos without showing myself for a while, and I've decided to show myself again. So for a change, I'm looking at this book. Generally, I refer to this complex PTSD, but Pete Walker has another one that's called The Tao of Fully Feeling, and I highly recommend this book if you've had childhood trauma, because it is a map that will help you evolve the guilt, the shame, the pain that you've come from, and it will begin to put you back on track and stabilize you in your reactions to life. And our interaction has been more in our body, and it's a process, and it's not all or nothing, which he clearly says in this book, Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving. What I've got here is a little sheet of paper, and this is from his other book called The Tao of Fully Feeling, and I'm going to read it. And I suggest that, firstly, I would really strongly recommend the Complex PTSD one before this book, but you can go any way you want. But this is about feeling, the importance of recovering the feeling nature, because what happens in childhood, we lose our natural feeling nature. And the reason we lose it is that when we're banished from expressing our pain, we then are banished also from expressing our joy. So it's a double-edged sword when we're mistreated in childhood, and to overcome that in adulthood, we have to start reparenting ourselves. And again, this book addresses that. And I'm also doing sessions online, speaking to people. So if you want to book with me, you're able to do that, or subscribe if you have not subscribed. That would be helpful to me as well. And I'm going to read this bit of information now. Pete Walker says, from The Tao of Fully Feeling, the individual who is seeking a healthy relationship with his or her emotional being will strive to accept the existential fact that the human feeling nature is often contradictory and frequently facilitates between opposite polarities of feeling experiences. It is, in fact, quite normal for feelings to change unpredictably along continuums that stretch between a variety of emotional polarities. As such, it is especially human and healthy to have shifts of mood between such extremes as happy and sad, infused and depressed, loving and angry, trusting and suspicious, brave and afraid, and forgiving and blaming. So what he's pointing out is that, which is the truth, is that we are all, in a situation where we don't know what we're going to feel in 5 minutes time. We can take a situation like, yesterday, a couple of days ago, which happened in Beirut, very shocking for humanity. We're all going through so much right now. So, not knowing what the future holds because of the COVID situation, and, there's so much going on for each of us individually. So often we can close ourselves off by not allowing the full continuum to be real for us, or where we get shut down and be told not to feel something. You can probably look back to your childhood if you've been through abuse, or even if you've not been through serious abuse, where your feelings have been shut down. Like as a boy, boys don't cry, girls don't get angry, very basic patriarchal belief systems that are not absolute truth. So we have to re-educate ourselves, and this is psychoeducation. He goes on to say, unfortunately, in this culture, only the positive polarity of any emotional experiences is approved or allowed. This can cause such an avoidance of the negative polarity that at least two different painful conditions result. In the first, the individual injures and exhausts himself in compulsive attempts to avoid some disavowed feelings, and actually winds up more stuck in it. So, if you're feeling depression and people say, oh, go on holiday, and they don't allow you to sink into that feeling of depression, which could be that, you need more creativity in your life, or you're not happy with the situation. Feelings are there to, guide us. They push us into making changes. So when we take note of our feelings and we sit with our feelings, we can listen to what they're telling us. And Jung actually has a very, some nice information on that, Carl Jung. So then Pete Walker says, he says, in the first, the individual injures and exhausts himself in compulsive attempts to avoid some disavowed feelings, and actually winds up more stuck in it, like the archetypal clown. The archetypal clown, his frantic efforts to free himself from a piece of flypaper leave him more immobilized and entangled. In the second, repression of one end of the emotional continuum often leads to a repression of the whole continuum, and the individual becomes emotionally deadened. The baby of emotional vitality is thrown out with the bathwater of some unacceptable feelings. This reluctance to participate in such a fundamental realm of the human experience results in much unnecessary loss, for just as without work there would be no play, without hunger no satiation, without fear no courage, and without tears no joy, and without anger no real love. Most individuals who choose or who are coerced into only identifying with positive feelings usually wind up in an emotionally lifeless middle ground, bland, deadened, and disassociated in an unemotional no man's land. Moreover, when an individual tries to hold on to a preferred feeling for longer than its actual tenure, he or she often appears as unnatural and phony and, like plastic flowers, he says another word there that I can't pronounce. If instead he or she learns to surrender willingly to the normal human experiences that good feelings always ebb and flow, he or she will eventually be graced with a growing ability to renew the self of the vital waters of emotional flexibility. So that's the moon, the moon. I'm part of the astrologer as well, evolutionary astrology. The moon, it waxes and it wanes and it's full and then it's, void. So, we have that within us. We're water, we're water-based. So the moon is affecting the water on the earth, and, our emotional tides, they go in one way, they go another way. And the more I allowed myself to grieve, the more I allowed myself healthy anger, the more I allowed myself to speak my mind and be vulnerable with people. I had somebody, an astrologer who worked with my chart and mentored me for quite some time, Simon Forster, who told me, when we choose to be vulnerable, and this is a really beautiful point, if we know that we're choosing to be vulnerable with another, and then another doesn't acknowledge our vulnerability, or they push us away, we've been vulnerable. So at the end of the day, we're not losing anything by that. Like, if we know we're being choosing, if I choose to be, if I choose to share and be vulnerable in this arena that I'm on now, and people are going to think what they think, and they're going to have their own comments and ideas about what I'm saying. So I don't need to be afraid of the responses that I receive, because it's not a reflection on us, unless we're being an ass, of course, then it could be a reflection on us. But if we're just being, ourselves, what other people think of us really is not a lot of our business. And we're allowed to have, to have the tears, to have the laughter, to have the full Monty of emotions. He goes on to say, the repression of so-called negative polarities of emotions causes much unnecessary pain, as well as the loss of many essential aspects of the feeling nature. In fact, much of the plethora of loneliness, alienation, and addictive distraction that plagues modern America is a result of being taught and forced to reject and pathologize or punish so many of our own and others' normal feeling states. So we can watch ourselves as friends when we do this to people. How many times has somebody phoned you up or you're having a conversation and they want you to stop feeling your pain? And people are uncomfortable with other people's pain generally, but the true growth and true friends will sit with us and hold our hands, and it will be discussed and it will be talked about. So many families don't resolve the trauma and the chaos that took place because parents don't want to talk about it, or siblings don't want to hear it, or it's completely denied. A lot of that's happened with child abuse and sexual abuse, the abuse from the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. We're getting to a point now where we're able to voice, the abuse and talk about it and really look at what we feel, and not just pretend that we're feelings or pretending that we feel forgiveness when we don't feel forgiveness and we're pissed off about something. So we've really got to allow ourselves, allow your inner child to have its hissy fit about things, you know, allow your inner child to, you know, be and experience what it did not experience. He goes on to say, nowhere, not in the deepest recesses of the self, in the presence of one's closest friends, is the average person allowed to have and explore any number of normal emotional states: anger, depression, envy, sadness, distrust, etc., are all normal parts as life, as bread and flowers and streets. Yet they have become unscrupulously, can't pronounce that, avoided and shameful human experiences. How tragic this is for all those emotions have enormously important and healthy functions in a wholly integrated psyche. One dimension where this is most true is in the arena of healthy self-protection, for without access to our dysphoric feelings, we are deprived of the most fundamental part of our ability to notice when something is unfair, abusive, or neglectful in our environments. Those who cannot feel their sadness often do not know when they are being unfairly excluded, and those who cannot feel their normal anger or fearful responses to abuse are often in danger of putting up with it without protest. You know, and I spoke to somebody earlier on this, you know, that we look at the World War, Second World War, you know, First World War, where people were forced into having to carry out atrocities, you know, like bringing this up, but the gas chambers, where people just followed along, you know, and they followed along with what, you know, was believed by a leader, and they didn't have their own feelings about it out of fear, and everybody was monotone about a particular way of being, and it created chaos. So, you know, for us to have our normal healthy feelings and express them, whatever they be, is so important at this time, to be our authentic, original, beautiful selves. I'm not going to continue with the rest of this. I can send a copy PDF or lead you to, I'll put the link of the webpage for this article below the video. And thanks for watching. Hope it's been useful to you, and look forward to doing more videos.